Hey, welcome back to the RUCKCast, everybody. I'm your host, Jim Palmer, and today I'm want to do something that I probably should have done a long time ago, but I'm just slow like that. Um, a few months ago, I announced that I was changing positions with inside Ruckus, and I joined a group called RUCKUS Managed Networks. And everybody that I told this, they were like, "What is that? What is Ruckus Managed Networks? What do you guys do?" Well, all of that stuff. And so I'm finally got the two guys who can help me explain what I do for a living, because sometimes I don't even know. I finally got them wrangled together, and we're going to record, and I'm going to talk to these guys. So we're now all going to learn together what it is I do and what our group can do for you. So without further ado, let me bring my guests on for our episode today. I got Jim Doherty, who is apparently in some random city in the United States, hobnobbing with all the high muckety mucks. And then we got Jerry, who's sitting in his house doing all the work, while Jim and Jim, we just play around. So, Jerry, let's start with you. A, who are you and what do you do? And why do I have you here today?
Hey, I'm the product manager, director of product management for RUCKUS Managed Networks. I work for Jim Doherty, and you have me here today to tell everyone what you do and don't do.
Wait, hold on. We never talked about what I didn't do. We're not supposed to advertise that. That's not good. But anyway, the other Jim, we call him JD because believe it or not, there's actually another Jim within the group. So it's kind of,
So many gyms.
there's so many Jims. So the other Jim, the head Jim, who gets to be called whatever he wants because he's in charge, Mr. Doherty, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. This is Jim. That was quite an introduction you already gave me, but I'm the general manager of RUCKUS Managed Networks. I wear a couple hats at RUCKUS. I also am the head of all of marketing for RUCKUS. But the fun part of the job right now is managed networks, working with Jim and Jerry. So
All right. Awesome. So now that we've talked and we've said Ruckus Managed Networks and RMN several times, um, who wants to jump in and tell us like what exactly is RMN? What's that? What does that mean? What does that do?
Yeah, RUCKUS Managed Networks is a group we created because we realized we have customers that buy Ruckus gear and they need additional services to get it deployed and run the network. So what we do is a full turnkey from start to finish. We'll do design, deploy, test, and turn up. Then we will run the network, which means upgrading the firmware on the equipment, proactively monitoring it, and and troubleshooting if we encounter if we find issues, and also rolling trucks if we need to replace a piece of equipment, helping with break fix. And we what differentiates us further is that we do it as a white label service. So there's no everything is branded for the partner or service provider that we're working with. All of the portals for onboarding. Um, so that is in a nutshell what RUCKUS Managed Networks is, and we've been doing it for um, over 10 years now, and we have
Wow.
about 6,000 properties under management.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's a
I think you captured that pretty neatly. I would say the one maybe further clarification is it's primarily run through service providers. So the service providers sell to their clients. We white label the whole thing. Now we're seeing increasing interest outside of the service provider part of the business, but that's where we predominantly play, offering the service to and through service providers.
okay. So, um, I mean, just a follow up, where is that big differentiator between, and this kind of plays into my next question, but what's the big differentiator between what people normally associate with a ruckus type thing and what we offer as RMN? Like, what's that one key difference?
Well, I think the key difference is we are an easy button for deploying, operating, and supporting and managing a RUCKUS network.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the our customers have clients who just want the network to run. They don't have the desire or even the capability to run their own network. And even at scale, it's not something necessarily that the service providers want to do, right? They're monetizing the circuit, and so you know we allow them to deliver a business to their customers that they can basically just have us run, right? They don't necessarily have the capacity to do the truck rolls and the design and the deployment and then actually run the network, take the trouble calls. And so we have that business built up. And I once it's built up, it is truly an easy button for them, right? Because particularly if you're going to a new property, or this is sort of your first time out, think about just the big startup costs you would have setting this up in the first place. We already have it established, and so it's just I couldn't put it any better than Jerry did. It's the easy button for them.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I would say there, when you look at the four parts of deploying a Ruckus network, you've got your design bucket, you've got buying all the hardware and APs and switches, and you've got the deployment. Actually, I have five deployment. You've got the splash pages and portals for onboarding and setting up private networks, and then you've got the post deploy support, and then on top of that you got the tier one calls. Like connect. There's a difference between supporting the network hardware and taking the calls from the end users. So we do all six of those things, and so what we encounter is that you've got partners that are comfortable buying the gear and stocking it and maybe even installing it, but maybe they don't have the portal system for an MDU that allows VLAN mapping and private networks to follow customers throughout the property, or maybe they're not comfortable taking the end user support calls. So those are all the pieces, and we work with some partners that do, like we have some partners that will do the purchasing of the equipment and the installation, and we do running the network and supporting it. So we have the flexibility to fit with partners that have some of the capabilities but don't want to do the others.
so that's interesting. So when you say tier one, I mean, give me an example of what that would look like.
Yeah.
What
So
does that mean?
one of our operators, I'll just use a smaller service provider called Astound. What that means is our support people. We have an 800 number that's assigned to Astound, and when the phone rings in our support org, they answer the phone. Hello, this is Astound Internet. How can I help you? You need help connecting your Roku TV. Okay, let's walk through that. That's the conversations we take. Yeah.
And same with the actual user portal. That's all brand. We have customizable portals for all their branding and their logo and the splash, how they want it to look and feel, and all of that is pre-set up so we can stand this up very quickly, and even down to, for example, if they want it co-branded both with the service provider, so it says Astound Internet in the right corner, and it says the gardens at Indy kind of thing as a property, and then it's branded for that particular property, and when all of that is just part of the setup, and so it just looks like something that's sort of almost done locally, right? And you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you guys said easy button, this literally is an easy button. It's that I need a network. I don't know what I'm doing. Will you do it, please? And
Right.
Yeah, it could be that. I mean, quite frankly, some of our service providers are pretty sophisticated, you can imagine, and at times they just the pendulum swings back and forth, sort of insource outsource, and so maybe they had a business and they go, this is not core to our this isn't core to our strategy anymore, and so they could even flip dozens of properties over to us at once, kind of thing, right? Where they just they're going in a different direction or what have you. So the sophistication of our customers goes from pure novice, they don't, like you said, they don't know how to do any of this, to very sophisticated, and they've done it at scale, but for any variety of reasons they want to outsource it, and so they can flip it over, so we can actually take huge kind of property flips, and do that, kind of in one shot. So
Wow.
Yeah, one other thing that's interesting is in addition to large properties like MDUs, large public venues, or hotels, um, for SMB, we have programs running with service providers where their people will complete forms on their systems, and then there are scripts that run in the background that create those properties in our systems and allow for that to be set up, drive the installation and configuration of the equipment on our side, so that there's automation in place for when we have high volume deployments inside of verticals like SMB.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I don't know that we really touched on that at the beginning. We most of a lot of what we do is kind of in the MDU, the student housing space, right? But we do SMB, we do large public venues, we do train stations, we do parks. We've got some munis we work with. So it's a pretty broad spectrum that we can offer the service through.
Yeah, and two other things that Jim didn't mention is we also have two service providers where we do mobile data offload with them, which means we do some integration, background integration with their systems to make that happen. And then we also do public Wi-Fi, and that's done in two ways. In some cases, it's strand-mounted access points that are exclusively used uh, for transmitting the public Wi-Fi SSID, or we'll also do like a second SSID on their SMB enterprise deployment, like cable modems, and we'll um, configure that for mobile data offload.
Wow. So I guess the question really should be like, because I can tell you from the few months I've been here, you mentioned parks. I'm here to tell everybody, like, some of the parks that we're brought are a little extreme. Like, this isn't just like your little neighborhood, city park where you got a couple of trees and a playground. Like RMN has played in some pretty big type of like state parks, very large scale. So it's really is. I guess my question should have been is there anything that we don't do? Because you guys have pretty much hit like on everything that you can do in
Yeah.
in Wi-Fi. I mean, I what don't we do?
Well, there's a couple of complementary things that come up that we're working on looking at the business right now. One of them is PLTE, and we we've gotten in and gotten out, and it looks like we are prepared to get back into that, where we'll have a PLT offering that complements our Wi-Fi for obvious reasons at large public venues and that sort of thing, where there needs to be a secure, reliable, dedicated network for financial transactions, like selling hot dogs or whatever in the
Yeah.
stands. So we will have PLTE, and then the other is that we have dabbled in managed firewall programs. The challenge there is that we don't have a SOC yet, and so and then some of the requirements we need to scale up some people for. So we're looking at whether managed firewall makes sense as a business. So those are a couple things that we've done
Yeah,
and haven't done,
I
and
would say just an important point of clarification, though, right? Yes, we do a lot of things. What we're trying to get out of is just doing the peripheral stuff. At its core, we're going to manage, campus Wi-Fi, right? If stuff comes with that, we can figure out a way how to support it so that they don't have to have two providers, as opposed to, you know, uh, I don't know that we really want to do like just a managed firewalls service for a company, but
right.
if they needed to do that as part of a broader, Wi-Fi network, yes, we can figure that out. But it's a comes
Yeah.
with, not a standalone.
Yeah, good point. So, for example, we have a couple of large public venues, and their requirement is to have some pretty elaborate firewall configurations installed there, and we do that for them because we also manage the public venues, so it's an add-on.
All right. So you touched on something a little bit ago, and I want to come back and talk about this. Um, how does what RMN offer differ than, say, network as a service or NAS?
Uh, I'll take a first stab at this one, Jerry, and then you can correct me. So the NAS is in the way I view that it's you're selling an outcome, right? And so the whole thing is turnkey. You're almost purchasing network connectivity as a utility, right? And the billing, and sort of the ideal manifestation is you're billing against an outcome. Um, I think this is a precursor to a true NAS. Ultimately, we could roll it that way, where you basically just, it's a single price up front. It's a 5-year deal. The whole thing kind of just turnkey, and we offer the whole thing. Typically, what we're seeing is the end user is actually taking title to the equipment, so it's a managed service. Um, but it's certainly where this is going to evolve, right? I think I don't think it'd be too shocking of a statement that I don't think there's going to be many networking companies that are just offering network equipment without wrapping services around it, right? I think that the tide is turning. Where I think we have an interesting role to play over the next, say, 3 to 5 years is managed service as a service, right? So, a partner out there who's not an MSP, but, sort of a designer, installer, seller of networks, I think they could see legitimate business threats if they don't start offering services around what they do, but they don't want to stand up and knock, for all the reasons that everybody else. So, where this gets interesting is we have a service to go offer our non-MSP partners, right? Hey, if you would like to be a managed service without actually creating a managed service, because we can white label the whole thing, we can just literally, poof, you're a managed service provider now if you have customers that are interested in that. And the cool thing for them is they get to keep all their design and deploy work. Like, we don't take that, right? We're wrapping a service around it and their name and branded to them. I think that gets really interesting over the next 3 to 5 years as those partners start to see competitive pressure to wrap services around what they do.
Yeah. And also everything Jim said, supplementing it with, we are having conversations with service provider partners today about a all-in OpEx model, which is NAS, which is the full cost for a term of 3, 5, or 7 years for all of the equipment, design, deploy, operation, and support, and turning that into an OpEx model of a certain amount per month over with a contract for the full term.
Wow. I mean, it really is, and I kind of wanted to do this episode as sort of like a good introduction for me as well. I mean, it really does sound like, from your guys' perspective. I mean, this is something that, not only is it offering flexibility to service providers or our partners or whoever wants to do it. I mean, it just really feels like a group that is also looking to do all the flexible things. I mean, it's like, while on one hand we have all the service providers and partners being flexible, it's also like, hey, RMN is also going to be flexible at that same time and be able to flex and move to meet the demand, which I think is really kind of a cool thing. And JD, I think your point about, in 3 to 5 years, people needing to be flexible, needing to have, look at those different revenue models, or, I mean, because if you just say stagnant, the technology generally runs past you, and then you're just sort of sitting there, looking at it going, where did everybody go?
Yeah, I think the other piece that I'm trying to be conscious of, and I've seen this so many times, is any new technology comes along, right? And if you look at the hype charts that come along with all the analysts, they almost show like someone's going to throw this like big breaker switch and there's going to be a before and after, right? It never works that way. And I think that's where we think we have a competitive advantage, because people will consume parts of this before it's the whole NAS thing, right? And so, because we have distinct line items for design, deploy, turn up, management, support, the whole 9 yards, our customers can kind of dip their toe in a very affordable and safe way, right? So, like I said, the non-MSP partners, their whole business is design and deploy and resell, right? Now, for them to go, oh my God, we got to become an MSP, all this capital cost because you got to turn up a knock and you have to have 24/7 support, and that first one is massively expensive. And so we actually will say, listen, we can take pieces of that, and if over time you want, like, once you have enough critical mass where you can go, hey, now I actually have enough of these clients where, like, I might want to take, stand up and knock myself and do this myself, and we can hand it back, right? So it's maximum flexibility over that evolutionary arc of what will become, I think, a very predominant model of NAS in what, 7 to 10 years. I don't know. There's a quote out there I love. It's we tend to underestimate technology in a 3-year cycle, and overestimate it in a 3-year cycle and underestimate it in a 10-year cycle. So, think about, like, whatever's going to happen over that, 3 to 10 year period where the arc of this changes. We're offering an option for our customers to sort of adopt that pieces of it as they go at their pace, right, in a way that's good for their business. And it's a conscious effort on our part, knowing that no one's going to flip that big breaker, and there's not going to be a distinct before and after, at least while we're in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, and that's with the NAS discussions we have been having. For instance, we just had one today with a 3-year term, and at the end of the term, the question is, well, what happens then? And the answer is there's a network refresh, right? To get all the technology back up to where they, current, and then renegotiate the go forward monthly recurring charge for the network, all in still.
Nice. So I have to say, I'm really excited to have joined this group because, one, it's been fantastic working with the two of you, and there's a whole other team that actually does most of the work. It's mainly just us that kind of shows up on cameras every once in a while, and we say all the big words. But there is a whole dedicated team behind this that I can vouch for. That is the team that Doherty and Jerry have built is actually very impressive. So kudos to you, and thank you for inviting me to play.
Well, yeah, self-serving comment notwithstanding, thank you.
But what else is there about RMN that you would want, if this is, we'll call it like the 30-second elevator pitch or whatever, what is it that you would want people to remember from our conversation today about what is RMN and what can it do for you?
You want to go first, Jerry?
Yeah, I would just say I want you to remember that deploying a network end to end requires you know, a lot of skill sets, capital outlay, resources. So if you have a customer that has gaps or just wants a full turnkey, that's where we'd like you to give us a call to see what we can do to fill the gaps or do a full turnkey.
Yeah, perfect, right? And we've got a wonderful team of experts. It's this great junkyard dog team that just works really, really well together, and like, really sharp group of experts. So we don't need anybody else to be experts. We need spotters. If you run into a situation that says, hey, this might be a good managed service opportunity, or hey, we've got a partner who's getting questions about managed service offerings and they don't offer one, and maybe they're walking away from an opportunity they could otherwise have, let us know and we can drop into that conversation and see if there's any there. And so that to me is the important piece. Like, just keep an eye out, an ear out for things that might look like this, and then call us, and we can determine if it's something we could go forward with.
Okay, so calling us, how do we call us? If if we have that spot, or if somebody says, man, they're talking to somebody, they're talking to a customer, and the customer says, this is what I want. And they think back to this podcast and they go, oh yeah, that RMN team that Ruckus has, this might be a great fit. How would somebody engage RMN? How do you reach out to us other than just yelling at me on the social medias?
Yeah, I would say
that works.
Yeah. that works.
Well, I guess the point of clarification is this for internal Ruckus folks? Is that a question?
Anybody.
Or is it for everybody? Okay, so for
turns
internal
out,
Ruckus folks. Go ahead. Sorry, Jim.
I'd say it turns out that like people outside of Ruckus actually listen to me. I don't understand, but it happens. So inside and outside of Ruckus, anybody.
Yeah, we're as shocked as you are about that. So,
thank you.
All three of us are on social media channels. So I would say internal to Ruckus, obviously we're on Teams and email. Our email convention at CommScope is first name dot last name at CommScope. I'm actually listed as James, not Jim. So it's James.Doherty at CommScope, but Jerry and Jim, it's just first name dot last name at CommScope.com is the best way to do it. We don't have like an RMN at CommScope, although Jerry, we should put that on our list. And you could also just go to one of our contact us forms and say, I want to talk to the Managed Networks team, and they know how to find us.
Jerry, you got that for the list? Well, I know your list is, your list is only like 4 or 5 pages long.
And I think external also, you could reach out to your local Ruckus representative and just say, hey, can you set up a call with Jerry Patton or Jim Doherty or someone from RMN? And they'll say, what's RMN? And you'll say, watch it. They can tell them to watch the RUCKUScast, the RUCKCast.
Yeah. Right.
And we do a random drawing for anybody outside that does call us. There's an opportunity for a dream date with Jim Palmer. That is on the table.
You joke, but like, I think there is somebody who might actually want to take you up on that, which scares me just a lot. But with that unsettling thought to leave everybody on, we're out of time. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me and explaining to everybody what it is that I do, even though we actually never really talked about what I do. That's fine. It still is in the ether. But thank you for joining us and explaining everything. And to everybody else, honestly, the best way is to go to the Ruckus, ruckusnetworks.com and to contact us and just say, hey, we want to talk to RMN, and they'll get a hold of us. So with that, I think we're done for today. And gentlemen, Jim, I know you got to go and hobnob with the bigwigs, and Jerry, you got to start working on your list. And apparently I have to do something else. I will figure that out. But thank you guys. And for everybody else, I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, JP.
Hey there. Thanks for listening. If you like the show and haven't done so, please like and subscribe. If you want to contact the show directly, you can email us at ruckcast@commscope.com. I do read those emails. To learn more about any Ruckus products or services that we've talked about on this or any other prior podcast, please check out our About section of the show or the show notes. And as always, thank you for listening.